if you want a simple, pleasant, happy life, as a man, then don't invite toxic women in your life that subscribe to victim mindsets like toxic feminism. It's a supremacy movement today. It doesn't seek to equalize women to men. It seeks to more so make men subservient to women.
So then you wrote the Unplugged Alpha to put out your version, I guess your philosophy out in the world about who a true man is and the sort of conduct.
It's not a book about. I mean, some people say, well, what's the book about? Is it a dating book? Is it a lifestyle book? Is it a self-improvement book? I think it's all of those things, because there's chapters in the book that talk about understanding the dynamics in the relationship. There's a chapter in the book that talks about why I think every man needs to own a motorcycle at some point in his life, and why every man should get into combat sports and understand violence and be good at it, sort of thing. So the book kind of moves in different directions, but it's a good distillation of a lot of the content that I've put on my YouTube channel that went absolutely viral and got the most positive feedback. I've also done a lot of private consults with a lot of men over the years, and I've kept copious notes on a lot of the stuff that I've talked to men about. There's a lot of common themes that men do that cause problems in their lives. So one of the chapters in my book, and I give it away for free, is the 20 red flag chapter. So there's a lot of commonalities in men's lives that reoccur over and over again when chaos ensues. And it's usually like chaos comes from bad choices, doesn't it? Because you have a broken belief system that you subscribe to, and your belief system governs the choices that you make. And every day you'll start to make choices which end in certain results. And you can always, if you follow that trail backwards from results, choices to belief system, then you can see what somebody's made of, sort of thing. So the whole point of the 20 red flag chapter to sort of get right to the point of that is it's to help guys establish what to try to avoid when dealing with women if you're going to invite them into your life on a long-term basis. Long-term basis might mean anything from dating, relationship to a marriage. Anything more than just dating is the red flag chapter. So if you keep those women out of your life, then you generally keep your life simple and pleasant and more enjoyable. It's not to say that you like one of the red flags that I cover in my book is, let's say, women with addictive personalities. Could be to cigarettes, could be to alcohol, could be to shopping. You could be dating a woman that has a shopping addiction and she likes buying 3 or 4 different lamps, and will bring them home and try them out on the night table, and she has to go back and return the ones that she doesn't like. And then the next day it's handbags, and the next day it's shoes. And that's not going to absolutely ruin your relationship or maybe make her a terrible girlfriend or wife, but it's going to unnecessarily complicate your life in ways that a woman that doesn't have an addiction to shopping and returning things does. And that's just a very light example. I also talk about stay away from toxic feminists, stay away from, inviting women with children from prior relationships into your life. There's lots of different conversations in that chapter, but that's just an idea of what's in there.
What would you say the most glaring red flag you absolutely must avoid?
I think if you want a simple, pleasant life as a guy, a peaceful life even, you want to stay away from anybody with a victim mindset. And one of the things that I talk about is toxic feminists today, because feminism has moved from an equality movement for women where they didn't have equal rights to anything, at one point. And I don't think there's anything today that women can't do that men can do. I still wait for examples whenever somebody tries to challenge me on that. And they'll say, oh, well, women only make 75 cents on the dollar for every dollar that a man makes. And it's like, okay, well, do you consider and evaluate on that most men that work on oil rigs, roofing, work longer hours for more dangerous jobs, and 95% of workplace injuries are experienced by men? Like, do you count that into effect? Because most women choose simpler jobs, easier hours, or more comfortable, like daycare, dental hygiene, reception work. Like, these sorts of jobs will obviously pay more and they're less dangerous. So there's lots of things to contemplate. And I think it's moved into an area now where, if you're dealing with a woman and you invite her into your life and she has a victim mindset, then that's a loser's mindset. And if you have a victim's mindset, you also have to have an oppressor, because in order for you to be victimized, somebody has to oppress you. So guess who the oppressor ends up being for toxic feminists? It's men, right? And you can't opt out of that because you're still a man. You still have a penis. You're still born biologically as a man. So at some point, it's going to turn around and come back on you. So again, if you want a simple, pleasant, happy life, as a man, then don't invite toxic women in your life that subscribe to victim mindsets like toxic feminism. It's a supremacy movement today. It doesn't seek to equalize women to men. It seeks to more so make men subservient to women, right? And it's continued to push in that direction. There's not much that I think that we can do about it. It's just going that way for the time being, and it'll probably change at some point when masculinity becomes valued. We live in very peaceful times, don't we? If you look at human history, humans are warring, aggressive creatures on this earth. Like, we're actually kind of disgusting, if you like break it down and, compare it to the rest of the animal kingdom. And this is the most peaceful time in history, even though there's a war going on between Ukraine and Russia. If you look at the timeline of human history, a lot of the wars have really ceased to exist over the last 100 years. There's been isolated cases of them, with the exception of World War I and World War II, but there's been regional wars. But we live in very, very peaceful times. And I think that we have a lot of time in our hands. And that's why you see weird things today, like men thinking that they're women. And you've got this character, Dylan Mulvaney, that is being hired by cosmetic companies and beer companies to promote their products. It's just where we are today, right? And you have to identify these issues and define who is on your side, like who's on the inside of your perimeter. I always talk to guys about drawing a perimeter around the people that they care about, your family, your children, your woman, whoever that happens to be, and defining the us versus them characteristics. This is something that Jack Donovan talks about in his book, The Way of Men. So yeah, back to your original question about the worst type of person to invite into your life. I would say if I had to pick one, it would definitely be toxic feminists, because they make most men's lives absolutely miserable. They're just not fun to be with.
Fair enough. Let me ask you. So I don't know how old you are, but I'm assuming you're at least 40 plus. If you could go back in time, say 10, 15 years, and spend, I don't know, 10 minutes with yourself, like just having a conversation, what would be some of the things you would say to yourself?
Take bigger risks. Absolutely take bigger risks. Because I think men today, and even going back to when I was young, when I was 20 years old, we don't play to win like we used to. I think we play more not to lose.
Yeah.
And I feel sorry for younger men and women today, because they've heard this narrative of the victim mindset now for years. They've been told, masculinity is toxic. Women are oppressed. They don't have autonomy over their bodies or choice, blah, blah, blah. And I think back when I was a kid, and I didn't hear much of that, but even back then, I would go back in a time machine and say, take bigger risks, work harder, fall down hard, get back up faster, sort of thing. And I think that we're told to play it safe, right? Playing to win and playing not to lose might sound very similar, but they're two very, very different things. And when you play to win in life, then you put more on the line. You take, you put more down on the bet, and it's not like you're taking risky bets. You're taking calculated bets, I believe, anyway. So just taking bigger risks and playing more to win versus playing not to lose would be the narrative that I would have.
Would you mind sharing some of the things in your personal life where you wished you took a bigger risk?
Well, as an example, I came back from England in my early 20s. I went there for a few months, I think around 21 or so. And my first thought was, okay, so I need a job. I have friends here. I like motorcycling. I need to be able to insure my bike and have gas in the tank and go out on the Friday nights to hang out with the other guys to race on the streets. So I need a job. I need a place to live and I need a job and somewhere to put my motorcycle. So that's where I went. And then I spent the next 9 or 10 years or so doing those jobs. But you're never going to create real wealth or real freedom working for anybody else. It's just never going to happen. And it never happened, throughout history. But I think the kind of lives that my grandparents lived back when they were younger in their 20s, it was a lot more comfortable. Like men back then, like my grandfather had to work half as hard to find a woman that's twice as good as what men have to work with today, right? Like women today are bossy, they're disagreeable, they're more promiscuous than any other time in history. So arguably, you have to work harder now for a good woman that's half as good as what your grandparents did. So taking more risks in life in the sense of if you want to make real money, like life changing money, if you want freedom, if you like things like exotic cars, I remember sitting at the bus stop when I was 15, 16 years old, waiting to take the bus to go work to make 285 an hour, and thinking to myself, oh, wow, look at that Ferrari. I'd really like to have a car like that. But you never really put two and two together to understand how to make that kind of life changing money. And had there been more conversations, more narratives around entrepreneurship and what happens when you become an entrepreneur, I think that the risks would be taken because you'd understand them better. Make no mistake. I mean, 30 years ago, it was a lot harder to be successful as a self-employed entrepreneur than what it is today. We have the internet. There's money just traveling through the internet today like this. And all you have to do is create some value and reach out and grab some of it, right? Those sorts of things didn't exist back then, but there were still opportunities for you to work in environments or in areas where you could lean into entrepreneurship. But I wasted probably about 9 or 10 years of my life working for other people, and that's fine. I learned a lot of valuable lessons, but I would rather have been the guy that started my business at 20 instead of 30.
All right. Well, we're about to wrap up. So I know. So you've got the book Unplugged Alpha, and I highly recommend checking it out. It's actually an easy way to go through it if you're driving around. You can listen to it very, very quickly. I think within just one car ride, I went through like half of it, and it was really cool. So you guys can.
Yeah.
You said you're giving away a free chapter. Where can we get that?
Yeah, if you just opt into my email list, you can go to entrepreneursincars.com/red-flags, and that gives you the opportunity to opt into my list and get the free chapter on the 20 red flags.
Awesome. So one final question, and we'll include the link to the book, to the free chapter of the book, and to the book itself in the show notes. And you can get those at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. One final question. You obviously done a lot of work and a lot of research on what it means to be a man, especially today, where most men have the absolute wrong idea about what that means. What are some of the resources, books, courses, podcasts that you can recommend for someone who's aspiring to live this sort of life?
Well, I mean, you could start with my book, obviously, because it's got a lot of the elements and a lot of the things that I was influenced by. Another book I would recommend is Jack Donovan's The Way of Men, which is more about a book about masculinity and what it means to be a man, sort of thing. But if you start there, then that's a pretty good beginning point for most guys.
Awesome. We'll also include a link to Jack Donovan's book in the show notes. So also, of course, where can we find your YouTube channel? What's the name of the YouTube channel?
Yeah, best place to go to get everything is just my website, richcooper.ca. It's got links to my YouTube channel there for Entrepreneurs in Cars. There's another YouTube channel for the podcast, which is the Unplugged Alpha, which essentially just builds on the book. It's a living extension of the book itself, because each podcast episode is things that could essentially be in that book. So if you start there, then you're at a good beginning part.
Awesome. Any final words to a young listener in their late 20s, early 30s who's starting on their entrepreneurial journey?
It's always the same advice. It's do the work, man. Work is dressed in overalls and it looks hard, but the payoff when you put the time into it on something that has a good ROI, if it enriches your life and moves you closer to your goals, just do the damn work. It's going to be hard, but do it.